Welcome back to some more Switch Sports Golf action. Today we have a 1v1 challenge against one of the top ranked players in the Switch Sports Golf Ranked League, an administrator and coordinator of that league in Charlotte. So we're facing off in a 3-game set here. We're playing 3 random 9s, stroke play, and this should be a great matchup. I think we're 2 pretty evenly ranked players in that league, and we're going to face off here and just play 3 games and see who wins. So we're going to start on hole 12, where we see some maximum crosswind for this game mode. So 11 miles an hour from right to left is the strongest wind you can see on hole 12 in this mode. But you can always make that shortcut island with the blue wind. So the blue wind goes up to 11, that's what we always see. And we both end up here in a pretty good spot to give this tougher pin a run. So this short pin, typically you want to go for the 3-iron, try to hit a full 3-iron with some backspin. And that usually leaves you with a pretty good distance from this area. Now it's tough with this crosswind to tell exactly how far left that's going to move. Mine's going to move pretty significantly, so a lot more than I thought. It'll end up in the fringe, but it will roll back to the green, which is huge. Putting from the fringe is quite difficult, so I'm very glad to be on the green here. Even though we're 25 feet away, this is a pretty makeable putt. Just have to adjust it a little bit to the left. We'll give it a run. And it feels pretty good to see that one fall right away. So we'll pick up the eagle on the first hole of this challenge. Charlotte will do the same. So it'll be 2 under to 2 under through 1 out of 9 here. We'll move on to the second hole of this first game of our random 3-game set of 9 holes. So we're going to be playing hole 1 here with some 6-mile-an-hour winds pushing from right to left. So not the toughest of conditions. We're going to see that front pin. Now this hole is pretty straightforward. It's probably the most straightforward par 4 in this game, the most golf hole-like, standard golf hole-like hole in this game. But with some 6-mile-an-hour crosswinds, it's a little more challenging to try to hit it. I have to adjust a good amount to the right. Now the distance should be pretty straightforward here. It should be about a little over 3 dots of power. Now that looks like it's trending a little bit too far to the left. And it'll roll out to the right distance, but I'll miss it just barely to the left. And it looks like Charlotte's is going to roll by to the right. So a tougher pin to try to make that eagle on, or I should say not the toughest pin, but tougher wind conditions to try to make that eagle. I'll tap in for the birdie. Charlotte will do the same, and we'll move on to our third hole here, all square at 3 under par. So no movement on the leaderboard yet. We both match each other through these first 2 holes. Not much of a surprise on a more straightforward hole 12 and a more straightforward hole 1, but now we'll move on to hole 17. With some 20-mile-an-hour winds in the face. This is always a tougher condition. I'm not exactly sure if we can even reach the green, even with the maximum driver here. That's what I'm going to give it. That's definitely the play. And we will end up just a little bit short. So not the easiest of chips from short of this green, especially to that back pin. The wind is going to push a little bit diagonal. Now, if I'd aimed more to the right, I could have given this a better wind condition. But that chip feels pretty good. Oh, it just kicks a little bit left, though. So I wasn't anticipating the kick to the left off the green, and I miss it just to the left. We'll have to tap in that 4 or 5 footer for par. We'll both par, though, so we're still all square through 3 at 3 under par. So we're now both playing birdie golf, 1 eagle, 1 birdie, and 1 par between us. We will move on to hole 8 here. So after a straightforward first 2 holes, we see a little bit more challenge on the second 2. Hole 8 is never an easy one. Charlotte will make the green with the spoon. I'm playing a slightly different play here. I'm going to use the 3-iron with a little over 3 dots of power. I'm going to miss that to the left, but that's not a bad spot to leave that. I wanted to make sure I was not on the back part of that mound. So the 3-iron with a little over 3 dots of power is usually pretty good to leave a pretty straightforward putt. And we'll tap it back up that hill and make it for the birdie. Charlotte will as well. So we'll both be 4 under now, through 4. No movement on the leaderboard. We both match each other's scores on each of the first 4 holes, and we'll move on to our 5th hole, which is hole 20. So some definite increasing of difficulty as we've progressed throughout this round so far. 31-mile-an-hour winds pushing us straight ahead means I want to take a little bit off of the drive. It looks like Charlotte went for that gap between the rock and the trees, which leaves you with a closer approach shot. Usually that's a little risky for my taste. If you make it, it leaves you in a great spot. I typically end up hitting from further back though here, so not the worst spot. I'm pretty used to this type of 3-iron longer shot on this hole. I'll be able to curve it around that tree, which is pretty nice with this wind. And I will just miss it to the left, but it bites hard after hitting the upslope on the bounce. and I'll end up in that little bowl in the front of the green. So not the best leave there. Just a difficult condition. I mean, I put it behind the pin, and it rolls all the way back, and my putt will miss just to the left. So a tougher putt. It looks like Charlotte's putt will lip all the way around. My goodness. So Charlotte's par putt lipped out about 180 degrees, and she'll have to tap in for the bogey. So a tougher condition there. I pick up the par, and I'll be 1 up, 4 under to 3 under through 5. We'll move on to a more straightforward hole 9 here with some lighter wind kind of in the face. So this is definitely going to be a 3-shot hole with these conditions. I'll be able to just put the drive out there right in the middle of the fairway and hit just a slightly over 2-dot driver underneath those trees. So a pretty straightforward play. We'll end up just at the bottom of this fairway. And we have that front right pin, which is typically a little bit more accessible. One of the easier pins to try to get close. You can attack it pretty confidently because you aren't going to roll it back too extreme. But there's a little collection zone just short of the hole. So that's what I'm going to go for. I can give it a run, land it past the hole, try to roll it back down that slope. Now if it picks up a lucky line, that looks like it's going to bite too hard. But it ends up nicely in that bowl, and I'll have a pretty straightforward putt just kind of through the dip in the green there. So it's going to break slightly left. Pretty straightforward though, so I tap it in for the birdie. And Charlotte will birdie as well. So I'm now 5 under through 6. Charlotte's at 4 under. So some tougher conditions in the middle part of this round so far. Hole 9 wasn't too bad though, so we'll both pick up the birdie. And now we'll see some additional tougher conditions. Hole 21 with some nearly maximum crosswind. I call this a Category 4 hurricane. The 4th strongest red wind that you can see just behind 33 miles an hour. I'll hit a nice drive here, so that's pretty ideal. Just to land it on the right side of the fairway there. It'll kick all the way to the left side. So that was about as perfect as I could hit that drive in a very, very strong crosswind, very downhill situation. This approach shot's also going to be tough with that pin that slopes away from us. So I landed a little bit too far. You really don't want to cut it too close with that bunker. But I put it in the rough, and my chip is going to end up just a little bit short. So on the 2 special holes, the holes 19, 20, and 21, we play 20 and 21 in this first random 9. Oh, Charlotte's putt is going to lip out from the top of that green. This is such a difficult green when you're ending up anywhere except, straight above or straight below the hole. So my chip misses, but I tap in the putt, and it looks like Charlotte was putting for par there and has to tap in for another bogey. So a tough round so far. 2 special holes with some tough crosswinds. And now we'll move on to a more straightforward hole 5 here, just 2 miles an hour pushing us to the left. This one is pretty doable. I'm just going to put it over that first rounder tree on the left side that should bounce safely by the big pine tree that is annoyingly in the middle of the fairway. And that's about exactly where you want to put it. This next shot is very straightforward as well, just straight ahead with those winds pushing barely to the left. That should put me nicely in the middle of that fairway. And this green with that pin in the back is a bit tougher. There's a big mound on the back left of the green that's going to push this shot right, so it's going to bounce to the right. That's for sure. The wind is going to push this left very slightly, so I'm just going to bounce a wedge up there and hope that it kicks to the right, takes a nice bounce, and falls. And wow, Charlotte's shot will just bounce right over the hole. It looked like it kind of bounced off of a lid over the cup. I'm not exactly sure where that hit, that it didn't fall for Charlotte, but a real close call. Mine will sink though, and I'll take a 3-shot lead, 7 under to 4 under. So some tougher conditions on those special holes where I make the par and Charlotte makes the bogey, and then that nice hole out for eagle there is the difference so far. We see some crosswind here, and I underpower my 3-iron. I was going for the 3-iron play with about a little over 2.5 dots of power. I leave it slightly under 2.5 dots of power, and I end up barely carrying the bunker, but kind of clipping the lip of it. So I bounce off the fairway, which is very fortunate, and I still make it. So I'll pick up game 1, 8 under to 5 under. We're going to play a full 3-game set, so we're playing 3 games. We'll move on to game 2, where we'll see no special holes, but a lot of the back 9. So an interesting setup here. Some tougher holes in 6 and 8, but it should be more straightforward without those 2 special holes. So we'll start on hole 5. Once again, that par 5. And we'll see, looks like a different pin this time. We're going to have that back left pin. But very, very similar wind conditions, just pushing slightly right, 2 miles an hour this time. So we're going to hit a very similar drive just over the top of that big round tree. Usually pretty straightforward to carry that one, unless you're dealing with any sort of headwind. So we can once again just send this one out there as close as possible in 2. This is definitely going to be a 3-shot hole. We're going to have to chip up to that pin. And now this is a pin that I play every day in my challenge series. This is the local pin that you see in one-player mode. And I want to use my little bump and run here. So I'm thinking, from this angle, it should move slightly right. So I aim it a little bit left, and that rollout looks really good. It will roll to the right, and mine will sink. So I make 2 eagles on hole 5 with conditions where I couldn't putt it. I had to chip both of them in. But I make the eagle once again. Charlotte has to tap in for the birdie on a very, very close call there once again. So I get 2 luckier hole outs on hole 5, and Charlotte barely misses both of them. So in game 2 here, I take that 2 under to 1 under lead through the first hole. We'll move on to hole 15 here with some maximum crosswind. So 22 miles an hour, double the 11 mile an hour maximum crosswind that I was talking about earlier, is the maximum for the middle part of each of the 9. So 15 is right in the middle, and 22 miles an hour is the maximum wind for that hole. I'm going to want to aim this significantly to the right. Not super far because it is diagonal wind, and I want to land this well left of that pin with some backspin. So that's trending in a great spot. That's a fantastic landing spot. Now if it trickles down, which it is, it will fall. And I'll make the maximum crosswind eagle on hole 15. Charlotte will tap in for the birdie, but I get another lucky hole out, and I'll go to 4 under through 2 on 2 chip-in eagles. I guess the second one was more so just a standard shot from the fairway, but Charlotte's at -2. Standard birdies, but I pick up some fortunate luck in the first 2 holes here, and I'll be 2 up in this stroke play game. We'll move on to hole 13 with a more accessible pin and some lighter wind, so not bad conditions here. I'm going to want to use the 5-iron with a little over 3 dots of power, about 3.3 is what I'd call it. It looks like Charlotte ended up a little short with the spoon. So the spoon strategy is a little riskier because it's more precise, it's easier to hole out, but leaving it a little short typically means that it's going to cut that bunker pretty closely, and it looks like that's what happened there. So Charlotte's chip is barely going to miss to the right. I'll have a tap-in birdie after taking the iron play, and I'll be up 3 through 3, so I'll be at 5 under, Charlotte will be at 2 under. And we'll move on to hole 16 here with some helping wind. 15 miles an hour makes this one very interesting. So we'll be able to take that shortcut for sure. Not a lot of risk in taking the shortcut. I'm going to take a little bit off of this drive with the hope that it's going to fly a little bit lower. Now it can fly lower safely as long as it carries that first tree. And flying it lower allows it to make it under that second tree. So taking a little bit of power off there allows it to not hit the leaves of that second tree. Oh, but it doesn't matter for Charlotte, who chips in from off the green. I saw her kind of by that second tree. She chips in anyway. My putt is going to end up short. So I'll miss a much more makeable shot. Charlotte makes a very nice one. And I'll tap in for the birdie. So Charlotte makes up 1 shot there. It is now -6 to -4 through 4. I'm off to a good start in this round. I'm hoping to keep it going. And we'll move on to the 5th hole of this second 9, where we'll see some tougher conditions on hole 14. So 17 miles an hour in the face means that we need to take that shorter, or I should say longer route, but the safer route on the left side of all those trees. Not the easiest pin to reach into from this angle. We're going to have to use the spoon or the driver. It's likely going to be the spoon. So the spoon feels like the right play with this distance and that pin. I'm going to aim this well left and hope to just bounce it left of that bunker. And it usually takes a pretty big bounce, and it does there, and reaches the green nicely. So a nice play there from a pretty tough distance, and some tougher crosswind to put it nice and close, and I'll have a very straightforward eagle putt. Charlotte's putt's on a good line here, and it lips out though. So it just misses the left edge. Charlotte taps in for the birdie, and my lead is back to 3. So I'm 8 under through 5, a good pace for me. Charlotte's at 5 under, and since I had some of those lucky hole outs in the early going, I'm off to a good start here. Hole 8 is going to be more straightforward here. So we see no wind. I'll be able to use the 5-iron. I leave it a little short of where I want to hit it, though. So I'd like to hit that a little over 3.5 dots of power. Now, that'll be fine. It's just not really going to have a chance at the hole out that I was going for. But we'll end up on the front part of that green. Charlotte's shot was on a great line, but it just misses to the left. I'll have a tougher side hill putt here, but I'll sink it. Charlotte will sink hers as well. So 2 nice birdies on a tougher pin. That pin often gives me trouble. We'll now be at 9 under, or I'll be at 9 under. Charlotte will be at 6 under through 6, and we'll move on to the 7th hole of this random 9. So we're going to see hole 17 here with no wind once again. So 2 interesting, tougher par 3s, but we see no wind. I don't exactly know what the play is here, so I'm just going to aim right at it and hope it takes a nice bounce. Charlotte's on the green nicely. My shot takes a strange kick to the right that I wasn't quite expecting. But it doesn't glide, it doesn't have that little launch roll off the back. And this will be a nice putt here. Charlotte will sink her putt, I'll sink my putt. And following 2 of the tougher par 3s typically in this game, hole 8 and hole 17, we'll see no movement on the leaderboard. So those 2 holes usually cause some variance, you know, there's some difficulty involved. But I'll be at 10 under, Charlotte will be at 7 under, and we'll move on to hole 8, where we'll once again see a tougher hole. Hole 6 is for sure a tougher hole, but no wind for the 3rd hole in a row. So a very, very curious seed that we're playing here. Tougher holes, but no wind. I'm going to aim this to the right. It feels like the safer play to try to hit it up and over the trees, as opposed to using the tree strat where I just send it left into the trees and then try to roll it down with the spoon. This pin is doable with the tree strat, a little bit more doable than the front pin, but it is just a little bit harder to try to reach. And I actually end up behind the tree in trouble here. And in my effort to try to hit it up and over, I club down, and it still isn't enough loft to make it over that first tree. And I'll clip the tree and end up well short. Charlotte has already made a birdie. I'm going to have to try to chip this in. It just kicks to the right off that slope a little too strongly, though, and I barely miss it. So I'll have a little 4-foot par putt here, which I will sink. Charlotte picks up the birdie. And in the process, we'll make up 1 stroke. So it's now a 2-shot lead heading into the final hole of this second random 9. I'm at 10 under. Charlotte is at 8 under. And let's move on to the final hole here. We're going to play hole 9 with some lighter winds. So we've seen hole 9 twice now with lighter winds, nicer conditions to try to, you know, hit a straightforward shot into it, but you can't reach it in 2 with these lighter winds. So we're once again going to have to hit that little just over 2-dot driver underneath these trees. It's going to get pushed left nicely this time, so we'll have a more straightforward approach into it. But we do see one of the tougher pins. That middle right pin is on a very, very strong slope. So not one of the easier pins to hit into because you don't have a lot of green to work with, especially when the wind is pushing you this way. Hitting off the fringe is always a risk, and using backspin is a risk as well, because it can just yank you down to the bottom of that green, and it is a tougher putt from down there. It's not a very straight putt quite often. But I'll hit the fairway safely, get a nice bounce. It's a tougher putt, but a more makeable putt for this pin. I'll tap it down nicely. Charlotte will also make a more difficult putt, kind of a side hiller from the top of that green. But that'll be the game. I'll be 11 under through 9. Charlotte will be at 9 under, and I will pick up game 2. So I'm up 2-0. We'll move to the 3rd game here, where we'll once again see hole 16. So a lot of repeat holes. I see 9 as well, and 5. So we keep playing some of these sometimes more difficult, but sometimes more straightforward holes. We see some nicer wind on hole 16 here.
Nice shot.
So any wind pushing from right to left allows that shortcut to become a lot more accessible, and I'll bonk it right off the tree. I do feel like there's a curse in this game where when you're dealing with strong crosswinds that are very tough to hit precisely, we see Charlotte hit the tree as well. Whenever you're dealing with strong crosswinds and there's a single trunk to hit, and it's at risk of being hit, you're going to hit it. That's just the way this game goes. It looks like Charlotte's shot landed past the pin and got yanked all the way back to the fringe with the backspin, so a very interesting physics play there. The wedge catches very strongly on this pin quite often. I've noticed that, but never quite that much. And Charlotte has to chip and will just miss it. So I end up underneath the tree, and in the process of trying to avoid the leaves with the wedge, I club up to the 9-iron. And that helps me. It kind of just glides to a stop behind the pin. I have more of a tap-in birdie. and Charlotte has to make the par on the first hole of this game 3. We'll move on to hole 11 with some stronger wind this time around. 9 miles an hour, kind of diagonally to the left, so tougher conditions to try to make this shot. But it is one of the more accessible pins. There are a few pins on this hole where you have to cut it real close to hitting the pin. This one you can just land to the left, and if it's enough left, like that's a good spot to land it. Oh, but it just misses on the left side, so it bit a little bit too hard. That seemed like the perfect landing spot, maybe just a little bit too short, and it bites off that slope pretty hard, so I'll have to tap in for the birdie. Charlotte will make the birdie as well, and we'll move on to hole 3 with me up 2 under to 1 under, so some nice play from me in the first 2 holes, some 2 nice birdies, and Charlotte has a tougher run at hole 16, which causes that par. We'll see stronger tailwind on hole 9 this time around, so this one is now more reachable in 2. So I'm going to hope to land this one safely left of the rough, but also right of that big pine tree, and that's trending a little too far left, and I think that tree is going to be directly in my way, and it is. So I'm going to try to draw this one around it. That pin is on the left side of the green. This is not going to be necessarily an easy shot, kind of a risky one. Oh, and I just don't get the draw, so I hit it perfectly straight, which is actually fine. I mean, ending up in the bunker is fine. Not my preferred spot. I'm a little far away. Charlotte has already made the birdie, so I think she got in that short left bunker in 2 and nearly chipped it in. And my chip is just going to be a little too far to the right, so the wind pushes it a little bit more than I thought it might. I will tap in for the birdie as well, and we'll be all square on that hole, but I'll maintain that 1-shot lead. So I'll be 3 under through 3. Charlotte will be at 2 under, and we'll move on to hole number 4. So we see a couple repeat holes. Hole 9 once again, but with some different conditions that time. It played a little bit easier, but neither of us could take advantage of the ability to reach it in 2. So we'll move on to hole 7 here with some tougher crosswind. So even though we'll have one of the more makeable pins, one of the more accessible pins on this green, that 17-mile-an-hour crosswind pushing us back is going to cause me to have to use the 3-iron over the top of that tree on the right side, since the spoon can't make it through that gap and, you know, still be on line with the pin. So we'll have to hit it up and over the tree. My full 3-iron backspin works. It's going to get pushed a little too far left to make it, but it'll hit a nice spot on the green, and it'll roll back. That'll be a nice makeable putt, kind of just downhill, straight downhill. So a good leave there. Charlotte will make the birdie. I will have a pretty straightforward one. Just going to move a little to the right, and I'll sink it dead center. So a nice birdie there. Not the easiest conditions on hole 17, but played pretty well for each of us. Once again, no movement on the leaderboard. I'll be at 4 under. Charlotte will be at 3 under. And we'll move on to hole 5 of this 9. We're going to see some maximum winds here. 22 miles an hour is the maximum for hole 4. Now this hole is set up diagonally, so even though it's south wind, it's going to push us a little left. And my shot is on a good line. I didn't want to use backspin there because there's not a lot of green behind the hole to work with. So the backspin oftentimes just yanks it all the way back down that slope. So a nice leave there for a more makeable birdie putt. It is a little side hill, but that's oftentimes a little hard to avoid on that hole. I'll tap in a nice birdie. Charlotte's putt will fall as well. She'll make the birdie. So 2 nice putts there. 2 nice leaves on a tougher condition. Some tougher winds on hole 4. And I'll be 5 under. And Charlotte will be at 4 under through 5. We're going to play hole 12 here once again with no wind this time. It'll have one of the right pins though, which is oftentimes a little harder to access since the front fairway portion of that of the surrounding part of that green kicks to the right. So it's very difficult to predict, especially when you're dealing with that middle or back right pin, how this bounce in front of the green is going to go. I'm just going to send it out there. That's the power that I usually use to try to reach those middle back pins. And that'll be a fine leave. Charlotte's leave is a lot better. A much better run at the albatross for Charlotte. She'll tap in for the eagle. I'll have more of a testing putt, but not too bad. Less than 20 feet. On a pretty straightforward green, and mine will fall. So a nice eagle for me. A nice eagle for Charlotte. No movement on the leaderboard once again. 7 under through 6 will be my score. Charlotte will be at 6 under. So we're each playing better than birdie golf, which is usually pretty good for these setups. And we'll move on to hole 17 once again. So we'll see some tougher conditions this time around. We'll probably have to hit full drivers once again, so maybe a slightly easier pin, but just tough crosswind. So I'm going to hit a full driver.
Nice shot.
I actually lose a little bit of power, and my shot is trending way too far left anyway, so I underplayed the wind. And I will glide all the way to the back with that launch roll, so that's something that happens very commonly on this hole. Oftentimes it's very hard to avoid. I'm just going to blast a putt at it, and it'll sink.
Nice birdie.
Wow. So my putt hits the pin at about 50 miles an hour and falls for a miracle birdie. I'll be at 8 under, and Charlotte will be at 6 under. Wow, what a lucky putt on that hole 17. We'll move on to hole 5 here for the third time in our 3 games. We'll see some lighter wind once again, so another chance at an eagle on hole 5 if I can put it close. See if I can go 3 for 3. Now, it's going to be tough with wind in the face this time around. We're going to be a good amount further away. But it's only 4 miles an hour, and it's once again
Nice shot.
that local pin, that back left pin, that is often one of the more challenging ones. It's not one of the more straightforward ones to hit, but it's one that I play very frequently. So we'll be 53 yards away, so a much further distance. I'll want to club up to the 3-iron or the 5-iron. I think the 5-iron might be the play. The 3-iron often rolls out a little bit too much. So I'll roll that one up there. It looks like it's just a little too far to the left, and yeah, it just doesn't come back
Nice approach.
to the right as Charlotte's shot hits the pin. So a near make on that chip, which would have been the birdie save. And I'll gain another stroke on the 8th hole there. So I'll be at 9 under, Charlotte will be at 6 under, and we'll have 1 hole to play, which will be hole 1 once again, but we'll see some maximum tailwind. So 11 miles an hour is the max on hole 1. We'll see that back right pin, which is one of the more difficult ones to try to hit precisely. And we'll just send a full drive out there, no adjustment needed on the start there. Now, Charlotte took a different route. So going more to the right allows you to make this wind like pure tailwind, which is oftentimes a pretty smart play. So my shot's going to move a little left with the wind, which it is trending that way. And I'll leave it a little short anyway. So Charlotte will sink the birdie.
Nice.
A nice putt there. I'll leave mine about 5 feet short and tap in as well. And that'll be the game. So I'll pick up game 3 here, -10 to -7. We did see some tougher conditions, especially in that first game, but I played pretty well. Thank you so much to Charlotte for playing. That was a very fun match. Charlotte's a very solid player, and I don't win that 3-0 very often. 3 games is a very small sample size. But I hope you enjoyed this match, and I will see you in the next one.